Today we're looking at which one's better for you, the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Capital One Venture X Rewards credit card. We'll look at 5 key factors including the effective annual fee, multipliers, how the programs compare, travel benefits, and authorized user perks. Big favor before we dive into everything though is to give this a thumbs up to help the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Starting off, let's look at the effective annual fee. This matters a lot because it kind of informs on the rest. So even though the Chase Sapphire Reserve has a $795 annual fee, you also have a ton of credits that can either offset it or make it less painful. The up to $300 annual travel credit being the easiest, and then StubHub and Viagogo, Sapphire Reserve Dining, and the Edit Hotels credits being prime options to help. For anything that doesn't make sense, discount as needed or mark it down to 0. If you want to keep track of these numbers and don't want to use paper pen, we do have a calculator that should pop up if you search CSR worth it AskSebby. For most people, the best case is getting positive expected value. So where realizable value of credits is above the annual fee. Otherwise, ideally, you want to break even or something reasonable. So let's say a $250 effective annual fee, which would put you in the same spot as the prior iteration. The Capital One Venture X Rewards credit card is significantly more straightforward. You get up to $300 as an annual credit for bookings through Capital One Travel. You also get 10,000 miles as an anniversary bonus every card member anniversary starting after year 1. This is worth $100 towards travel, but could be worth more, especially if you're on team transfer partners. We also have a similar calculator as well if you want to follow along. Multipliers get interesting. Let's start in a vacuum and then expand from there. For travel bookings on the respective portals, Capital One is better for hotels and rental cars, while Chase is better for everything else, including flights, cruises, activities, and tours. One thing I don't talk about enough though is price match. Capital One has this as a feature. It has to be within 24 hours of booking and also a reputable site, but they'll otherwise give you a travel credit for the price difference. There are other rules as well, but seems more than reasonable. I think you can argue both sides here. It just depends on your spend. With direct bookings though, Chase Sapphire Reserve wins hands down, and 4X is solid. I'd probably still use hotel cards given the insane multipliers, but for airlines, 4X Chase beats even some flagship cards where you might get 3X miles, and those miles might be significantly less valuable. Dining's a bit of a weird one where Chase technically wins, but it might not matter. We'll get into that in a second. Ignoring partner options and limited time ones, the last key multiplier is for everything else, where Chase is 1X and Venture X is 2X. Okay, so why might the last two not matter? You generally want to isolate for value above replacement. There's a lot of other cards, even no annual fee ones, that offer 3X transferable points or miles on dining, and also 2X on everything else. If you're a one and done type of person, then factor them in. If you're running a setup though, it might not matter. One big difference between the two are their systems. The easiest way to think about this is that you're earning 2 different currencies. With Capital One, you pretty much need to be on team travel, otherwise you leave a lot of value on the table. At a minimum, I'd book travel through Capital One Travel or cover travel purchases. If you're willing to put in the legwork, then transfer them out where they have 15 plus airline and hotel partners. Note that I didn't include some of the partner ones like Amazon and PayPal. Main reason being that number 1, they can easily change, and number 2, they're not competitive. So it doesn't really factor in. With Chase, the big draw is that you have a ton of optionality. Let's say you start with travel, but you decide to do cash back, you're still getting 1 cent per point. Pay yourself back tends to be for everyday categories, and it's 1.25 cents. In the middle, it depends on if you have an existing card or whether you like premium travel. But my go-to is still transferring to partners. If you're new to this, you're taking your points or miles from the bank and bringing them to a partner with a competitive award chart to typically redeem for premium flights and hotels. On the airline side, I'd argue that they're pretty equal. For example, you can transfer Capital One miles to Turkish to book Turkish business class from JFK or Chicago to Istanbul for $65K. You have to be willing to do homework and be a bit flexible, but I'd happily pay $650 for a non-stop one-way long-haul business class flight. If you want to try one of the more interesting business classes with Finnair's no recline seat, that's also an option for $62.5K. This is a giant rabbit hole, but also where the value tends to be. If you're interested, I can send an email with a cheat sheet. Link to that will be down below. But yeah, lots of options. One I'd recommend deep diving on is Aeroplan for Star Alliance partners, Flying Blue for SkyTeam, Qantas for OneWorld, Singapore for Singapore, and then Virgin for ANA to Japan. The main difference is hotels. The only one that offers outsized value to me is World of Hyatt, which Capital One doesn't have access to. It depends on what you're focused on. The main draw of points and miles to me is heavily discounted and arguably the most optimal way to have some great experiences and make amazing memories. For flights, I think you can make the case for both. For hotels, I think Chase wins. On a side note, if you want to learn about either of these cards and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, that they make sense for you, but otherwise it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Travel benefits is where I think a lot of people will have differing opinions. We'll start with elite status and then get into the mess of lounges. For rental cars, Chase has status with National and Avis, while Venture X has it with Hertz. For hotels, Chase Sapphire Reserve comes out ahead if you stay at IHG hotels. For airline lounges, it depends on your family unit, where you live, and if you can justify multiple cards. In the short term until January 31st, 2026, they're both technically in the same boat, with Chase probably coming out ahead due to footprint and also Air Canada partner lounges when flying Star Alliance. Looking at the lounges by their relative position on a map from west to east, you can see that there are overlaps with New York being a big target and Vegas and Dallas being battlegrounds once Chase finishes up. Otherwise, it looks like Chase has California, Phoenix, and Philly, while Capital One has DC and Denver. So yeah, very much depends on where you live and where you fly to. This is as of summer of 2025. It of course can change. The problem that a lot of people have is that after January 31st, 2026, the Venture X no longer includes complimentary access for guests, meaning that you have to pay a fee depending on type of lounge and also age of your guest. If you're a family, it might make the Venture X untenable. If you're a solo traveler though, this might make lounge access easier. Also, couples are in an interesting spot. For some, this is the nail in the coffin for the Venture X. For what I think would be many couples though, you could probably just both get the card. Usually if one makes sense, then one each also tends to work. Your mileage may vary. That leads us into the last topic of authorized users. This does get a bit confusing, so I'll show it in parts. For the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it's $195 per authorized user, and they get the same lounge benefits. This means that they get their own priority pass card and can go to Sapphire lounges and Air Canada lounges if eligible by themselves. We'll get into whether it makes sense in a minute. With Capital One right now through January 31st, 2026, you can add up to 4 authorized users for no additional cost, and they get the same lounge perks through January 31st, 2026. Pretty straightforward there. After though, so starting February 1st, 2026, you can still add them, but they do not get lounge access and do not get priority pass. You can pay $125 to basically turn on the lounge add-on feature though, and they would get the same perks you get of access for themselves. Whether it makes sense is pretty much just a math equation. For example, for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, option 1 is just paying the $195. Option 2 is paying for a second card, so $795 annual fee, but where you get X dollars in tangible credits. In this case, if X is equal to 600, then you're impartial since $795 minus 600 is the same $195. But if X is more than 600, then it makes sense to get a second card since it's actually mathematically better. With everything, run the numbers, you might be surprised. Overall, I think you can make strong arguments for both cards. I think the effective annual fee is a bit easier with the Venture X. Multipliers can go both ways, but I think Chase is more compelling given my spend. Chase has the edge on system since you have more optionality. Travel benefits, probably the Chase as well, depending on your footprint. Authorized users, I give to Capital One. It's still a great option if you need to give, let's say, your college-age kids an emergency card. If you need the lounge add-on, $125 is easier to stomach than $195. But yeah, for both, run the numbers, do the math, and make sure that it actually makes sense for you. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and down below in the description box. As always, it means a ton. And if you're curious, all legal affiliate disclosures can also be found below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a boxing glove emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions: which card do you like better? What's your family unit, solo, couple, or 3+? Also, do you think the lounge access changes are a net good? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favor, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.